You guys remember that somewhat old white robot dinosaur thing? You used it with like a GameCube controller looking thing and it could roar and like shake its tail, I think. It was cool as shit, on part with moon shoes. Almost. There were a lot of commercials for it when I was growing up, and I needed that thing, the only unit that could compete with my glorified pieces of cardboard, as my sister called them. But my mom never got me this weapon when I was a kid. But finally, at the decaying age of 24, not only do I have one, I have a ton of them. Dynamist. I kind of abstained from making deck profiles on decks that just came out for two reasons. One, it's the video everyone else is going to make, and they're probably going to make it better than mine. And two, I don't want to proclaim anything about a deck's power level definitively if we simply just can't know yet. However, I've gotten a few personal requests from my beautiful subscribers to do a deck profile for Dynamist. And secondly, the deck's power level isn't really something that's up for debate right now. It's very strong. Strongest free-to-play deck we've had in a long time, so I don't really have an issue making this video. And it's flattering to me that some people would prefer having me explain this deck, so I'm gonna give it my best shot. Dynamist is a pendulum swarm deck that centers around water attribute machine type monsters. They have built-in protection and, yes, keen swarming ability. So let's start with the main deck monsters, which is almost the entirety of the deck, and as to why will make sense as we go through this video. Dynamist Rex, the only super rare monster of the archetype. We're running 2 of him here. He's sometimes run at 3, sometimes at 1, and sometimes not at all, but I prefer running 2. He's a level 5 and his pendulum scale is 6. His monster effect is at the end of the damage step. If he attacked in any capacity whatsoever, could have bounced off everyone's favorite lollygagging elf for all we care. You can then tribute any other Dynamist monster to activate one of his 2 effects. Effect 1, he can attack your opponent's monster once more and he gains piercing battle damage. So he can't attack directly, but if they have 2 monsters on the field, then that's great. Effect 2, he can either shuffle 1 card from your opponent's hand at random or on their field back to the deck. Your choice in the matter, both of the effects are solid. Quite the walking 12 gauge with 2400 attack, so now his pendulum effect, when he's a scale, you can negate a card effect that targets any other Dynamist card you control, and then it'll destroy Rex, which of course he'll then float into the extra deck. So as a monster, he's out for blood, but as a scale, he's more on that angels in the outfield type of kick. And that's going to be a common theme going through this deck profile, and admittedly Rex is going to be a scale more often than he'll be a monster. Dynamist Plesius is a level 4 with a scale of 6 as well. On the field, he lowers the attack and defense of all your opponent's monster times 100 for every Dynamist card you control, which, like, sure, whatever. But then its pendulum effect is the same as Rex's, preventing targeting by destroying itself. So another thing to mention about this archetype is that they are all level 4 or 5 and all of their scales are either 3 or 6. So within this archetype, those scales are phenomenal. Dynamist Ceratops is an example of a scale 3 Dynamist. He's level 5 like Rex, and his pendulum effect is like Plesios and Rex, but he prevents destruction by destroying himself, giving you 2 angels in the outfield. His monster effect is that he can special summon himself if all monsters you control are Dynamist, and that's kind of the hallmark special summon effect for any good swarm deck. Spinos is a level 5 scale 3 Dynamist, same pendulum protection effect as Ceratops, then his monster effect is pretty nasty. He can tribute another Dynamist monster you control to either attack your opponent directly or attack twice in the same battle phase. And that's on 2500 attack. He's a beast, needless to say. And I'll just tell you right now, he's kind of the boss monster in the centerpiece of this deck and the main thing that makes their OTK work. And as to why will make sense later, but I'm just gonna say that effect is not once per turn, and it's kind of stupid that it isn't. Petran is level 4 in scale 3, same pendulum effect as Ceratops and Spinos. When he destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can search any Dynamist card from your deck to your hand. The effect requirement isn't super great, but the effect itself is insanely good. And honestly, it isn't too hard to proc in this archetype specifically, and he's got 1800 attack. Ankylos is level 4 and rank 6, same pendulum effect as Rex against targeting. Then as a monster, he banishes any monster destroyed by a Dynamist you control. Brachion is level 5 and rank 6, same pendulum effect against targeting like Rex and Plesius, but on his monster effect he can special summon himself if you don't control another copy of him and your opponent controls the monster on the field with the highest attack. These main deck monsters are run in many different ways, 2 copies of this, 3 copies of that. It really comes down to preference a lot of the time. The most necessary ones will become more apparent when I go over the combos, but effectively a lot of them accomplish the same thing, and that's being a great scale and by extension being great protection to facilitate the other Dynamist monsters going for a ravaging OTK. But how do they do it? How do they get together? Flyers in the local grocery store for the barbecue you're having featuring your opponent as the main course. Is that really going to get these guys together? No. Well, what do they want? Well, I don't know. What do they need? They need a Searcher, and Dynamist Charge is the best card in the deck by extension. A continuous spell card that can add any Dynamist monster from your deck to your hand on its activation. Amazing effect that adds combo pieces you need for the OTK and greatly improves the deck's consistency. And if it wasn't good enough, the first time a Dynamist card is added to your extra deck from the field, so all of the pendulum monsters, it'll go to your hand instead, which is dumb as hell. Like, the protection effect they all share would just be recycled the second they destroy themselves. Because if you didn't know, pendulum monsters go face up in the extra deck when they leave the field, and Dynamist Charge would just add it back to your hand instead. This card is insane, and I think if Konami feels the need to nerf Dynamist, then this is the card with the target on its back. Dynamist Rush can special summon any Dynamist monster directly from your deck and make it immune to card effects, but then it's destroyed during the end phase. It synergizes well with a bunch of different things in the deck, whether it be summoning Spinos during your turn to OTK, since, you know, on top of the protection it already has, it is now just straight up immune to everything, so not even Drowning Mirror Force will work here. Or you could use it during your opponent's turn with Charge on the field, and then when it's destroyed during the end phase, it'll just go to your hand, which means you just search a Dynamist monster directly from your deck, just really slowly. Great card, run it 2 copies, sometimes 3. Once again, it's kind of preference, but I'm starting to think it's better at 3 copies. The card doesn't really hurt any consistency, is why 3 copies is fine, and normally trap cards do hurt consistency, but since this one helps you get your combo pieces and also thins your deck, it doesn't really apply here. And that's about it. I'm serious. Like, some versions are running cards like Heat Wave to accommodate their frail turn 1. And so yeah, about that, let's talk about the skills. Swing into action Pendulum Summon just gives you pendulum scales, and that's great. So you can have a charge on the field with a set Dino Rush or something like Pulse Mines, which is seeing occasional play in Dynamist decks. Having 2 scales clog your board is rough. So a card like Heat Wave that essentially locks down both players for 1 turn, as neither of them can summon any monster in any capacity except setting. I used this in Black Wings to accommodate their frail turn 1. It's an overlooked free-to-play card in the right deck, and when you're using the swing into action skill, then it really does help with that turn 1. So when you're protected on that turn, you can ravage your opponent on turn 2, all the while having the scales that just make your deck so much better. Then there's Grit. So there's something that y'all should know about me. I don't use Grit. Personally, I think that skill has been used in way too many degenerate ways, and I don't like it, and I don't think it should be in the game. But it basically acts as a turn 1 guard, so you can explode on turn 2. You lose the scales, but then again, you can still consistently OTK. And like, look, no judgment from me if you prefer to use Grit. I just refuse to use it personally. Should be noted that Dino Rush can be a good turn 1 protection too, since you can summon an invincible 2500 attack monster on your opponent's turn. It's kind of like Triforcitops in that vein, and not to mention, you'll just get that Dynamist back anyway, either with Charge or a Pendulum Summon next turn. So I keep talking about this OTK. So let's go over that. We're running so many monsters because with the scale set, you can pendulum summon multiple Dynamist, and as you can tell, they are complete monsters in the battle phase. Now, normally cards with battle phase related effects aren't super great, even if the effect that's activating in the battle phase is really good, because it's likely that the card will get disrupted before that happens. Except with these pendulum effects preventing targeting and destruction of your Dynamist monsters, they don't care. Big middle finger finger to Treacherous Trap Hole, bigger than the one I gave it. Plesios and Rex prevent cards like Book of Moon, Forbidden Chalice, or Karma Cut from ruining your day. Seriously, with one scale that prevents targeting and the other that prevents destruction, this deck shrugs off almost everything. And cards like Herald of the Abyss are just too slow, so the absolute best counter is Drowning Mirror Force, but as I mentioned earlier, Dino Rush can accommodate that too. You really want Charge because it can grab a missing piece to the combo that you'll need and also sets up a little recursion. And then you really want to set those scales. Past that, with cards like Spinos, little is stopping you. Pendulum summon Spinos and Plesios, then tribute Plesios to allow Spinos to attack twice this turn. And yeah, Spinos' effect is not once per turn. And I'm using Plesios in this example because he's level 4 and can be normal summoned, because when you tribute him for Spinos' effect, he'll go to the extra deck, which he will then be added back to your hand because of Charge. Then you can normal summon Plesios again, tribute him with Spinos' effect to proc his other effect so he can attack directly. 2500 attack, can attack twice, and can attack directly, and is immune to targeting, and is immune to destruction. Yeah, this shit is nuts. If your opponent can't stop this, you win. Best bet is disrupting the scales by using resources to proc the scales effect so they leave the field. And another thing about Charge is its effect to add or remove Dynamist card is not optional, and it is once per turn. So they could force you to add back a card that you don't want, but you're being put into a state of card advantage if they do that, where they will have less and less answers to what you're doing. Rex may be the super rare here, but this deck's boss monster is Spinos for sure. You don't even need the extra deck really, and I won't go over it that much. It's just good rank 4s and 5s that will act as situational moves should you ever need them, like maybe Roach against a synchro deck, but because of the built-in protection, it's very rare for the extra deck to even be necessary. But you know, a Heraldry Patriarch against Harpies is never bad. Volcanosaurus can finish games safely, and you can also use some of the water-based Exceed monsters since all the Dynamists are water attribute. Because of Charge, this deck is seldom ever inconsistent. It's a nice bonus that some Dynamists like Ceratops can special summon themselves. It just facilitates the Spinos OTK even more. And that's really the gist of it. It's a free-to-play simple but powerful deck, which it feels like it's been a while since we've had something like this. How viable is it? Well, if it goes uninterrupted, it's one of the strongest decks in the game right now, and it is kind of hard to interrupt. The thing is certain decks going second can bypass a Spino summon with Rush or the Grit skill. Nothing can really get over Heat Wave though, but the issue with Heat Wave is that it's situational. If you draw it going second, then it's just a dead card in your hand. But that being said, there really isn't too much you have to look out for except Drowning Mirror Force and Floodgate Trap Hole, easily the two best counters to the deck. So running spell and trap removal in place of cards you're missing, like the super rare Dynamist Charge, is not out of the question. And it doesn't always have to be Spinos, like Rex can be a monster in the battle phase by attacking twice and inflicting piercing battle damage, and in general they all have relatively high attack. And the other funny thing is it's not the easiest board in the world to break either. So even if your opponent survives the Stampede, I mean, it's not like they're always gonna come back from it. And so just some stray thoughts about other cards you can use. Kiteroid certainly works as a turn 1 protector. Dynamist doesn't need the graveyard, so Necro Valley can be a nasty shutdown to certain decks. Spell and trap removal is good, like I said, and the free-to-play players, you can get your hands on anti-magic arrows, and that'll certainly do the job. And you don't always need the normal summon either, so a card like Amano Iwato can make the OTK that much better if you normal summon him after setting up your Spinos. It's pretty fun, it's affordable, strong as hell, and I like it. I'm glad a powerful archetype like this has come out and is very accessible for free-to-play players. So I hope this video was helpful as a deck profile and a little bit of a tutorial. I appreciate the guys that requested this video. I'm always in the market for video ideas, hint hint. I should have a video up tomorrow and Monday. We've been doing some fun duel rooms over in the Discord if you guys want to throw down with ya boy and his fellow chicklings. That won't be your guys' name. I won't call my subscribers chicklings. I promise. Maybe like ghost chickens. I don't know. Let me know what you want me to call you guys. So I'm gonna get on eBay. I'm gonna go look for that toy. Fuck Treacherous Trap Hole and have a nice day.